Hey, so in this video, we'll be discussing about array as such. Array is a non-primitive data type. So, what non-primitive means is uh, you can mutate. So, what are primitive data types is like you can say string, undefined, null, and numbers as such. So, you can't basically mutate them. So, if you check the documentation, it will show you what are the primitives and non-primitives as such. So you can say uh, these are basically the primitive data types. So these are the things you can't uh, basically you can't mutate them. So but the thing is objects and array, these are non-primitive and you can basically mutate them with the help of indexes. So let me pull out the array documentation. So you can see array are in primitive data types. So you can store all the, you can store various types of data types inside the array. So you can say a mix of different data types which you can store resizable. The arrays are resizable. So uh, yeah, so for how to define an array, so we usually define an array. For example, let arr equal to like this, 1 2 3 or something, right. uh, there is another way to define an array is like you can do a new array. For example, let x equal to new array, and then you have to define a size, basically maybe 4, and then you have to fill something. So you can do a dot fill. We will come to dot fill what it is. So you can fill one with all the basic indexes. All the 4 indexes you can fill one. And if I log this x, so if I log this s, so you will get the array, right? So if I do without fill, uh, then it is basically an empty array. But the thing is, length is 4. So you have to define the length of the array if you are doing by the method. I mean, if you are doing using a method called, new keyword. So it's basic methods of oops, I would say. So object or so basically arrays are, everything in the JavaScript is are objects. So it basically builds on the in top of objects only. So at the end of the day, it is actually object. So in top of object, we are making array and defining all the, I mean, for example, entries, constructor. There are many for each and all. These are all the methods you can access inside the array. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah. So for example, let us see what is a concat. There's a dot concat method as well. So yeah, dot concat. Let's see what dot concat has to say. How we can use it. So if there is, for example, let arr2 equal to another maybe 5 6 7 8 9, and then if I log arr dot concat and then arr2, so what it will do is basically it will take the array and it will basically concat the both of the array and it will return a new array. So if I log this, then you will get the array. So by ES6 there is another way you can approach this. So in ES6 you just have to do like spread operator. I will make a separate video on this. So you can spread the ARR and then spread the ARR2 as well. And if I do this thing, and you'll get the same output. So yeah. So concat and spread operator are basically they function as same only. So there is another method called every. uh, it is basically similar to, I mean, every basically checks if the value is there or not. So let's say I log this, and then I take the ARR to 2 dot every. So every will take two arguments. The first argument is a callback. So callback is basically function inside a function. Uh, so the second argument is not necessary as such. It can be integer as well, but usually you will give only the first argument to itself, the callback only. So if I do every and EL as such, so EL greater than, I'm just checking if there is something greater than 9. Okay, so but in the error true 2 there is nothing greater than 9, right? So if I do console here, it will give me false. But uh, if I do greater than 5, it is basically just checking if the value is there or not. So if there even a single value, it will give me the output as true. So if I save this, you'll okay, uh, error to white is giving me five. Continuous. Y is giving me false. So, so there was a mistake on my side. So basically, every will check the whole array. I mean, for example, I was doing actually 5. So if the situation is true for all the elements in the array, then only it will return a true. So I was doing 5, so it was basically ARR to all the elements. So it was checking that all the elements are greater than 5 or not. So that's not the case. So that's why it was returning false. But if I do greater than 1, then it will give me a true sign. So yeah, that was checking part. Then we have the fill thing. Fill. So for example, fill can be used. You can do like log of. So if you want to define, so for example, I want to fill the ARR2 with all ones. So if I do a log of ARR2 dot fill, and you just have to define what are the elements you need in the array. So if I need 1 in the ARR2, all the ARR2 elements will basically, so 1 will basically rewrite all the elements of the array 2. So if I save this, so you will get all the elements as 1 1 1. Then we have a filter. So filter and filter, then all these functions are higher order functions as such. So it will take a callback. It will take a callback, and there you can define all the values. So for example, if I do, so let's pull out the documentation as such. Filter. Yeah, yeah, there's the filter. So you can basically filter this. So similarly, we were doing like every. So it was basically checking the if there is the value or not. But it was just returning a boolean that okay, if the situation is true or not. But the thing is, in filter, you will. So for example, if I do, you will get the array back. So if you filter those things, so for example, if I do let y equal to arr2 dot filter, and it will take a callback. Inside the callback, the first will be the element itself, and the second will be index. So if I do like I need all the elements that are greater than 7 as such. Okay, so EL, I should be doing EL greater than 7. So it will just give me that particular array. If I do console log y, so if I do console dot log y, if I save this, so you will get the array. I mean, it will basically return new array with the required situation. I mean, if you want the elements to be 7 greater than 7, then it will just give you the elements greater than 7 itself. So yeah, then we have the map function. So map function also returns an array. So if you want to mutate the array, the whole array, and you want the array back in the form of, I mean, you want the data back in the form of array itself, so you can do that. So let me, for example, if I do, let me define something, let x equal to arr2 dot map as such, and it will take the callback similar to filter. It will take the first element, the first argument it will take is the element, and the second will be the index, and the third is usually the array, but we don't usually use that, the third argument as such. So so if you want to map through it, and then I need all the elements should be, I need all these squares of the element. Okay, so if I do this, it will basically take 5 and then square that, and then 6 and then square that, 7 and then square that, and it will basically push that everything into a array and then return that updated array. So it will return a instance of the array basically. So we can say, so if I do console.log x, so if you see that, then it will just return me 25, the 5 square, and then 36, the 6 square, 7, and then 64, and then 18. So this was the fill map. And if we do reduce, so reduce basically gives a single value. So if you want to, for example, there is a cart, shopping cart, and you want the total amount. So if you do, so reduce basically takes two arguments. The first argument is the accumulator. So for example, you must be doing, so for example, I need the sum of all the elements of the array too. So usually what you will do is you will write a, okay, no, I don't need this, I think, yeah. So usually you will just simply let I equal to 0, and then I less than array 2, 2 dot 2, array 2 dot length, and then I plus plus. So you will just simply define a sum variable here. Let sum equal to 0. So it will, the sum variable will basically accumulate everything inside it. So if we do sum equal to sum plus array 2 of I, and if I, yeah, if I log this sum, you will get the all in, I mean all the sum of all the elements of the array 2. So if I save this, you will get 35. So it is 5 plus 6 plus 8, 7 plus 8 plus 9. So similarly, the reduce works the same. Reduce basically takes three arguments as such. The accumulator, element, index, and I think you can pass the array as well. So you can check the documentation. But usually you will be using only, I think, uh, three three arguments as such. The first one will be the accumulator, and the second will be the element, and the third will be the index. So if I do let y, let me comment out these things. Let me note down. Let y is equal to array2 dot reduce, and then here you have to pass the accumulator. Accumulator b is basically the sum. So if I do sum for the ease, I have written sum, and the current value. So current value is such is the array 2 of I, right? So I have to write el, the element, and what I need is that accumulator plus element. So if I console.log x, okay, I have to, for that I have to define the accumulator as well as, yeah, I have to define the accumulator. So reduce will take the first argument as the callback function and the second argument as the accumulator. So if I do accumulator, in my case accumulator is 0, so I have to do this and then I have to return this as well. So it is basically yeah, it is not accumulator of a sum. Yeah, I think it will work. So yeah, you get the output as 35. But so to reduce the number of codes, number of lines of code, so you can also you don't need to define an accumulator as well. So you can just, if you don't define the accumulator, it will just simply take 5 as the accumulator. So it will take the initial I mean the first element of the array as their accumulator. So if you do, like for example, I don't want to return this, I don't want this as well, and let me delete this as well. Yeah, so if I do this and then delete this, and yeah, so if I do control log, so it will give me the same output. So you don't need to define an accumulator, but it is better to for example, if you want to set any initial value already, so it might be the delivery charges and all, so you can do that also. I mean, in that case you have to define an accumulator, but the thing is, if you don't, then you can just simply, even if you don't I mean define the accumulator, it will still work. I mean, so it depends upon the case to case. And so the next one is the uh, I mean for each. So just like the map, uh, so for each also works the same, but the thing is, for each is used to iterate over the loop. I mean the whole array. So these are all filter, map, reduce, for each. These are all basically used to use for array, and these are all functional based programming. So for each is used to iterate over the array, and it will basically return the return undefined. If you, for example, this was the map code. So if I control, if I just simply, in place of map, if I do just filter, and if I just log the value of x, control x, then it will return me, okay, array to filter. Okay, okay, I was doing, I think, yeah, it was for each. Yeah, for each. So if I do save this, and it will return me an undefined, because it is not returning, I mean for each that doesn't return anything, so it just iterates over the array. But if you do a log of el, then and then I just yeah, if I control that, so it will, you will see that I'm getting the value. So it is basically used to just iterate over the array, so nothing more, nothing else. So id value, so index, so arrays are index based values, so you can only I mean if you want to access some value, you have to define the index as well. So as I have said earlier as well, so everything in the JavaScript is an object at the end of the day. So if you do let me, so it is an array, yeah, array, and then let me define an object as well. Obj equal to mm, kurkure lays, chips, kurkure, kurkure as well. Yeah, and then if I log type of type of type of array2 and double equal to type of obj. Yeah, so if I do this, if I control save this, then it will give me a true, because uh, these two are end of the day are objects itself. So array is also object and object is also an object definitely. So yeah, uh, these were the things I wanted to cover as such. Yeah, these were the things I wanted to cover. So yeah, thanks a lot.